They say that forgiveness is the key to moving forward from things. Because if you can't forgive someone, it's like you hold a resentment. And that keeps you stuck, keeps you from, again, moving forward, growing, whatever that looks like. It's like an anchor. And sometimes the person we need to forgive is actually ourselves. To stop beating ourselves up for the mistakes that we've made in life. Because we all make mistakes. Some, worse than others. But there's this one quote that I really like. And it is, ships don't sink because of the water around them. They sink because of the water that gets inside of them. And if we are always berating ourselves, beating ourselves up for making mistakes, maybe not showing up as the best version of ourselves, maybe making some bad decisions, hurting people, whatever that looks like, we are the ones that it's like we're holding our own head under the water. We're punishing ourselves. And while accountability is extremely important, to take responsibility for the things that, we've done wrong or the mistakes that we've made, blaming, berating, and getting after yourself, beating yourself up over some of these things is taking it to an extreme. It's like if you were to, be dealing with a small child, a 5-year-old, and this 5-year-old made a mistake. They did something wrong. They hurt someone, they lied, they stole, they did something that was morally wrong. Or maybe it was something that was not as serious, they broke something. I don't know. It was an accident. Would you get after that little kid, yell at him or her, call them names, belittle them, cut them down, make them feel like they're not good enough or not worth anything? Probably not. There's discipline. There's teaching them the lesson that, yeah, that was wrong, and you need to take accountability for it. You need to take responsibility for it. You need to own up to it. You need to make it right. And once the lesson is learned, you kind of move on with it. And yet a lot of times for ourselves, we don't treat ourselves with the same level of grace or compassion. We have that negative self-talk. We do cut ourselves down. I know I have in my life. It's something that has impacted me in my life in the past. It could be any type of mistake. I made a mistake in sports or in relationships or, whatever that was. And it was like I was my own worst enemy. And you walk around with this this shame, That's the cost of not being able to have compassion for yourself and forgive yourself for the mistakes you've made. Again, forgiving yourself isn't about, well, whatever, and you just kind of brush it off. I feel like, that's where, I start to get into psychopathic behavior. You could have a serial killer that just murders people and doesn't think twice about it. It's not about that. That's a problem. It's about, looking yourself in the mirror and saying, I made a mistake, I did something wrong. How can I take ownership for this in my life and maybe outside of myself? And then move forward from it, learn from it, and recognize the fact that, I'm a human being. and everyone makes mistakes. But like I said, ships don't sink because of the water around them. They sink because of the water that gets inside of them. Regardless of what happens in life, people will always have opinions about you, you know? But as long as the opinion of yourself is solid, because you have forgiven yourself, you have compassion for you, you feel like you're walking through life with integrity, that water around the ship, it won't sink the ship. It's if you have a negative opinion about yourself, if you don't feel like you've been true to yourself, honest, morally, guided in whatever way that looks like, or you feel bad about yourself, you hold yourself down with shame or negativity or, whatever that looks like, that comes from within here. And that leads me to another quote that I really like. If there's no enemy within, the enemy outside can do no harm. And I think that illustrates this point very well. We often walk through life shaming ourselves for the things that we've done wrong. And if we do that, we are our own worst enemy. And you are the only constant in your life. People will come and go, experiences will come and go. But from the moment you're born until the moment you die, you will be with you for that entire duration, that entire period. So if the relationship that you have with yourself isn't great, it's going to be a long, bumpy ride through life. With a lot of head hanging, just, man, I can't believe I did that, Again, think of yourself as that little kid, that little 5-year-old that made the mistake. How would you talk to that kid? What would you do? If you really wanted that kid to learn, grow, and become the best that they can be, would you hold it over their head? The mistake that they made? Probably not. If we do that with ourselves, it's very difficult to move forward in life. Because you just have this cloud following you around wherever you go. This cloud of, again, shame or whatever. And to me, this is really, it's not super easy to do this inner work. But this is very important inner work because, again, the relationship that we have with ourselves permeates everything in life, everything we do in life. The relationships we have with other people, the way we show up, the things that we do, what we believe about ourselves. And it's what we believe about ourselves that it's going to largely direct the way we go in life, the outcomes we produce, the results we get, the direction we go. And a lot of times we have this deep subconscious crap that's pushed to the back of our mind. But just because we're unaware of it doesn't mean that it's not constantly guiding our lives. It's like Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you'll call it fate. And it's that notion of shadow work. We all have this shadow, parts of ourselves that we've kind of pushed into the shadows of ourselves, of our subconscious, things that we're not proud of, things that we neglect, things that we were told that, weren't good. And then we shame ourselves for these things. We push them away. And we're scared to be seen for these things. But it's not being able to integrate all of these parts that prevents us from being whole and authentic in life. It's like we're constantly trying to keep our shadow hidden in some way. We don't want to look at it. We're too ashamed to look at it, so we definitely don't want other people to see it. And we go through life scared of, well, shit. I mean, I don't want to be seen or judged for this because I have been seen and judged for that in the past, and that was bad, and now I judge myself for that. So, it's like going through life hiding almost. And it's not a great way to live, And I speak from experience with this. It's it's uneasy way of living to be scared of your own shadow. And the work, it's not like you do a deep dive into yourself and that's it. You do it once and that's it. I mean, it's an ongoing process. And a big piece of it is being able to look at yourself, bring awareness to the parts of yourself that you're having a hard time forgiving yourself for, that you beat yourself up for, that you shame yourself for, whatever it is, and just bring awareness to those things. Because oftentimes it's too scary to even look at them, to even bring your attention to those things. But if you can do that, it's actually quite powerful. You shine a light on the shadow of yourself. And just being able to look at yourself, these parts of yourself that are constantly, driving our behaviors of not feeling like we're enough or like we're not good enough or whatever it is. And how that is driving the bus in our lives. It's that scared 5-year-old that feels like he's not good enough or she's not good enough. And ask yourself, okay, what can I do for that little kid inside of me? How can I look after this kid in a way that they weren't looked after when they were younger for whatever reason? You've got to reparent yourself. And in doing that, you cultivate a stronger relationship within. You become more whole. You become more authentic. And that expresses itself in the way that you show up in life, in your relationships, in your sense of confidence or worth. There's no more need to, engage in people pleasing or trying to boost your own ego through certain things because you don't feel like you're good enough as you are. A lot of things start to change when you do this deep inner shadow work. When you look at the things that you're scared of being judged for or shamed for, or the things that you judge or shame yourself for, and the ways in which you beat yourself up. I made a video on Instagram a while ago, and I talked about one of the most powerful things that a person can do if they want to grow is to write down a list of their fears and to attack them like a bucket list. And, I had a lot of people saying, oh, well, I'm not going to go near sharks or bears or, whatever. But I think we're missing the point with that. I should have been more specific and I should have said, Write down the things that you are scared of being judged or seen for in life. Or look at some of those superficial fears on a deeper level. You know, I'm scared of, you know, claustrophobia. I don't know. Maybe it's the fear of giving up control. Whatever that is. Anyways, if you look at some of these fears on a deeper level, or it's more specifically, you look at the fears, what you're scared of being seen or judged for in life, and you start to bring awareness to those things. You start to have compassion for that side of yourself, the side of yourself that you've pushed away. It's very, very powerful. It's very healing. Because again, if there's no enemy within, the enemy outside can do no harm. If you're not letting water in your own ship by berating yourself, beating yourself up for mistakes you've made in the past or things that you did that you're not proud of or whatever, then your ship won't sink. But as long as we have these little holes in our boat, in our ship, and we're letting water in, whether we're aware of it or not, it starts to drag us down. Start to feel pretty low within ourselves. And it's not something that we're conscious of usually. It just shows up in not feeling confident, feeling very low, not feeling good enough, feeling like you need to prove yourself, like you need to please people to be accepted. Shows up in relationships, romantic and otherwise, other relationships. Shows up in how you perform at work, or whether you're going to put yourself in certain social situations or not. Like I said, it permeates every aspect of your life. Because life is a mirror. It happens from us. From within, we create the life that we experience and what we perceive and the experiences we have. And so by doing this inner shadow work, this bringing awareness to the things that you don't necessarily like within or were told weren't good or whatever, you start to liberate yourself. How free would it be to not have any inner critic, to not have that voice inside your head, to be free of any type of negative self-talk or anything of that nature? Because again, if you don't have that within yourself, it likely won't bother you if other people have it about you. It won't. The only reason it might bother you is because you think it might be true. So this is the path to true inner freedom, I think, is observing that inner critic, that inner, drill sergeant that's, gets after you for the past or for what you do now that isn't good enough, or telling you that, you need to do better all the time or whatever. Don't get me wrong, growth is definitely a value of mine, but everything in moderation, and sometimes growth isn't always trying to do better externally. Sometimes growth is being able to accept yourself as you are without needing to be someone else. Now, to me, that's true inner growth. Again, it's healing, really. Are you able to sit with yourself and breathe in the midst of some of these inner triggers or reactions, because that's the way all of these deeper inner wounds, if you will, express themselves. Triggered, I'm angry, I'm scared, I'm whatever. And it's being able to inquire with those things or observe those things without judgment, but with compassion and curiosity. It's like, again, imagine you had a little kid scared or, upset about something. Would you tell him, would you say, shut up? Like, I don't want to hear you right now, and like, get out of here or whatever. You say, hey, like, what's going on? Tell me what's going on. And would you listen and inquire and want to hold space? We have to do the same thing with ourselves. Because if we are that harsh inner critic, we won't be able to reparent ourselves. It's going to be this inner conflict for your whole life between that little inner child that's scared or not feeling good enough or whatever, struggling in some way, and that other part of yourself that is trying to push it down, keep it in the shadows. The holes of that ship will only get bigger until you go down and actually look at what the problem is. So, don't beat yourself up. We all make mistakes. We're all just human beings living life for the first time that we're aware of anyways. So, give yourself some grace and some compassion in life. Compassion is one of the greatest things for growth and transformation because it allows you the space to be able to make a mistake and come back from it. And be like, okay, yeah, you know what? I made a mistake that wasn't good. I'm not proud of it or whatever. But you know what? I'm going to learn from that. I'm going to take responsibility for it. I'm going to move forward. Believe me, I as I've said, I used to beat myself up for things a lot. Whether it was sports or relationships or just whatever mistake it was, I'm guilty of that. And that it was those periods of time in life when I felt the worst about myself. So you feel a lot better when you start to bring awareness, non-judgment, and compassion to yourself. Turn that focus within. And when you do that, again, you start to free yourself from you. So I hope this helps, and I'll see you in the next video.